Hello. It's Friday. It's February 26th, 2021, and it's 1 o'clock Pacific time. I'm Alison Pitt, and you're watching Daily Star Trek Views, the live, uncensored version of Daily Star Trek news. I don't know. Um, anyway, we're live. We're not talking, well, we are talking about the news today, but we've actually got all right. I'm going to take a step back because I actually have a ton to talk about this week. So, right, I've got it written all down here. Okay, I will say I am still talking about Lower Decks. We are in episode 5, which I think is halfway through the season now. The episode is called Cupid's Errant Arrow, and I will talk about that. Spoiler alert, there was not a lot to talk about. So that part might be a little bit shorter today than it usually is. But the good news is there is a ton of other stuff to talk about, which is I'm not going to spoil it. We'll get onto that in a second. Before I get started, I just wanted to say hello. I can see a few people in the chat. Nice to see you all here. Christoph, this is all your fault. All the lower deck stuff, all your fault. But it's nice to see you here anyway. Robert Kaiser has put something which I believe is Klingon in the chat. I have not taken up the Klingon Duolingo yet, although, maybe I should, and then I would know what you said. Hi, Paul. Hi, Earl Grey. Hi. Oh, Chris is in the chat. Say hi to Chris. Andrew, hi. Welcome, everybody. I hope I won't disappoint you today. Right. So before we get started, it's show and tell. I hope you guys like this segment because it's actually really fun for me. And so, yeah, right. Uh, so today, I'll give a little bit of an intro. This item I actually got from my very first Star Trek convention, which was Destination Star Trek London in 2014. I believed at the time that I would never go to another Star Trek convention. Some of you may have heard this story, by the way, so I hope I don't bore you. But yeah, in 2014, I had sort of rediscovered the Star Trek fandom via Star Trek Online, and I was living in England, basically down the road from London, so it was easy for me to get to, and I went all out. It was the TNG reunion convention, supposedly that year, because the entire TNG cast was going to be there, including Patrick Stewart, and they were going to do a big evening panel that was going to be emceed by William Shatner. I keep saying was gonna be. It did actually happen. The only what was sad was that Jonathan Frakes ended up not being there, which is good for me and is relevant to this story, I promise. um, so being that I didn't think that I would ever go to another Star Trek convention after this one, and this was a tremendous indulgence for me. Um, I was a single mom at the time. I had me and the 2 kids. They were very young. Jim would have been 8 and Dakota would have been 4. Um, but, when you're a single mom, if you wanna do stuff, it means you gotta take the kids with you. So I went nuts. I bought tickets to go. I bought tickets for all of us, and because I wanted to do the nerdy Star Trek fan stuff, I bought the tickets for the panel, and I bought tickets for a photo op. For those of you who haven't ever been to Destination Star Trek, everything's a la carte. So the ticket prices are pretty cheap. I think it was like £35 a day, or might be for the whole weekend. But then you have to pay for each individual panel has a cost, or each individual photo op or whatever has a cost. So I splurged on good tickets for the evening thing. They were I spent so much money, and I shouldn't, but I didn't think I was ever going to have an opportunity again, and TNG was my Star Trek, so I splurged. So the one thing I did was I bought a photo op with Jonathan Frakes, who I love. And if you are a friend of this show, or if you have listened to my episode of Trek Profiles, you'll know that I never ever want to meet him, because I've been such a big fan for such a long time that I would only make an idiot of myself. It's like in Community, it's like when Troy meets LeVar Burton. It would be exactly like that. So, luckily, Jonathan Frakes did not go. So, when I got there, they were like, "Hey, Jonathan Frakes isn't there. If you bought a photo op with him, you can exchange it for somebody else." So, I was like, "Okay." And, nobody tell Gates McFadden, but she was my second choice. And actually, I'm actually really, really super glad that that worked out because we tried to cosplay. My uniform actually, because I had ordered it online and, it didn't get there in time. So I could not go and cosplay. I tried to dress, like a villager or something. Anyway, it ended up being just a plain dress, but my children, God bless them, I dressed them up as characters from the TNG episode Rascals. And I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of my son. He's very tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed British boy, and looks spitting image of Picard from Rascals. And then I dressed my daughter up. My friend Tracy made a pair of overalls, and we dressed her up like Keiko. And yeah, that's how we did it. So um we ended up getting our pictures taken with Gates McFadden, and it was wonderful. So this is the picture that we came up with. Look at that. Sorry. It's a lot of glare. Um, it was so wonderful. And, for those of you who have ever seen these Tribbles as well, we splurged on the big, ridiculous Tribble. That's one of the ones that's, like, sound activated and shakes and coos, um, which was the height of technology at the time. And I don't know if Gates McFadden had genuinely never seen one, but my daughter set it off and it starts going while we're taking this picture. That's why we get this, like, look at her face, she's so excited. Um, and it was just like a wonderful little, moment. The funny thing is, because of the way that, the photo ops and that sort of thing work, is it like I could not convince them to just let me have a photo, like, they wouldn't. I spoke to their customer service, they wouldn't let me. If I wanted to have my kids in the picture, I had to have 3 tickets. If you have 3 tickets, then you get 3 photos. So we actually have I should have brought the other ones over too. There's one really great one with just my son and Gates McFadden, which of course is really cute because he looks like, Captain Picard. I have a better one of him when he's a little bit older. Here you go, Chris. Whoa. I I can't see what it's showing on the screen. Yeah, um, and then I have one of just me and Gates, and she complimented my hair, which is, like, the best possible thing because she's whatever, she's a perfect lady. That's all I have to say, so there's that. Anyway, that's my show and tell for today. Funny thing is, I actually, like, can't do those photo shoots anymore, and I'm in retros like, when it happened, I was like I was so relieved that Jonathan Frakes had canceled, and even though I love those pictures, like, I can't I'm not a person who can do those photo shoots. It feels weird to me. So those are, like, the only pictures that I have, like, those staged ones with, celebrities. Um, it's just the way it is. Anyway, good convention memories, and of course, I had no idea at the time that I would be doing things like this now. I genuinely thought it was the last time I'd ever go to a Star Trek convention, and I think I've been to one every year since, until the pandemic hit, so there you go. The w the world is a strange place. So, um, you guys have been chatting away, so I'm just gonna check to make sure I didn't, miss anything. Um, Mohammed, thank you for complimenting the cosplay idea. It was actually, a bit of a challenge because I had no sewing experience whatsoever, and I actually made my son's costume because there's not an awful lot of choice. Um, Fun fact, you can make a very effective, TNG, top for men out of 2, sweatshirts. In fact, I might bring it. I still have it because I refuse to get rid of it. It's basically you cut 2 things and you piece them together. It's, surprisingly effective, and I managed to do that on my I had to borrow a sewing machine on a little mender, and I did it all, and it turned out really great. He actually wore it for a couple of years. So, there we go. Um, and no, I never do the selfie ones by the table either. So I, like, really can't talk to celebrities, which is hilarious. More about that later. I really can't. This one time, I because I had met Mary Chieffo. I'd interviewed her, and I met her, at a Comic-Con through a strange series of events, and at STLV in 2019, um, I was like, "I'm gonna go say hi." And I did, and she came and she hugged me, and she was really nice, and I just felt so self-conscious, and it was very weird. So, no, I actually tend to mostly avoid celebrities unless I have, like, a good reason that I need to speak to someone. I'm really bad. So, anyway, hi, BC. Oh, good, I've been waiting for you. Yay. There you go. It's a tradition now. Um, so yeah, I knew it was a full moon. In fact, last night, you'll have to go back and watch today's episode of Daily Star Trek News. I think I accidentally turned on so there's a mode of that thing where it automatically cycles through the moon phases. And because I knew it was a full moon, I just went, click, turned it on, and I didn't think about it. I haven't gone back and watched it, but when I went to turn it off at night after I'd finished recording, it was still cycling. I was like, so it's entirely possible that in the background of the last video, it's just cycling through. So, um, yeah, Robert, yeah, it's really bad. I can't talk to celebrities. I get super shy. So, um, all right, but that's not what we're talking about. It's not. I was about to say it's not all about me, but it is my show, and there's only one camera on me, so it kind of is. But that's not what we're talking about. Um, this Wednesday was just like a humongous day in sort of Star Trek, and there hasn't been this kind of change for the franchise probably since December of 2019 when CBS and Viacom merged and kind of brought the whole franchise back under one roof. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, probably you guys all do. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, Viacom CBS held an investor relations call on Wednesday, and part of it was they went over their fourth quarter earnings from 2020. But then a large part of it was really a presentation introducing the new Paramount Plus service. Which is a big, big, huge deal. Like, it cannot be understated how humongous it is. Now, having said that, I don't believe that Paramount Plus is ever gonna be a Netflix. However, of the second tier streaming services, they are just super well positioned. They're gonna be expanding globally, and you can see some of the things that they're starting to do with Paramount Plus. I think they are, positioning themselves so that when they have the opportunity, they're gonna be like Netflix in the way that it's branded and it's an international, coverage, but it's not, it's I don't think it's ever gonna be kind of that level of content. They're a little more conservative in the way that they handle their media, so, I don't think they'll ever be that big, but internationally is a huge, huge opportunity for them, especially when it comes to things like Star Trek, and those of you who live abroad will, abroad compared to here, I know, I hope that you guys will see the benefit of that in the years to come. So, 3 sort of 4 big stories, and I just kinda wanted to touch on the stuff that didn't quite make it into, our articles, and by the way, I just wanna I just wanted to give a shout out to Chris for being really flexible this week because, that kind of threw everything of our plans of what the content for the show was gonna be kind of out of whack, so he was really flexible and helped me out. So right, number 1 was pricing, which we talked about on this show and, like, what the risks were to pricing. I feel confident in telling you guys, "Don't tell anyone." I completely expected the price to go up. After Mark Debevoise left the business, and all of the noise that they've been making about how much expanded content there was and how it was gonna be a better all this stuff, and the fact that they have this gigantic, gigantic sale on the annual plan right now, which I will tell you more about in a second if you wanna know. Um, I thought for sure they were positioning themselves to go up to $12.99, especially off the back of the fact that I think my Netflix subscription is like $17.99 a month now. It's I don't know. So I feel comfortable telling you that I fully expected them to raise the price, which of course everybody would have been mad about, but they would have paid it. But they didn't. They didn't change the price. The top tier ad-free service is still $9.99, and it will be, for the foreseeable future, definitely past the summer because they've already talked about what's happening in the summer with the other tier. So it doesn't mean that they're never going to raise prices, but I think certainly it just that removes a barrier to people who are anyway hesitant of continuing their service from CBS All Access to Paramount Plus. So that's great. I thought something was interesting. So there's two tiers right now. There's the $9.99 ad free, and there's the $5.99 ad supported. That $5.99 is going down to $4.99, and I don't know whether they're decreasing the price or whether they're adding a new tier so you legacy people will be able to stay, because they are actually removing content from that level. So not a lot. The only things that are going are CBS local channels. That gives them a little bit more flexibility in terms of their contract negotiations, which is something that I don't understand at all. However, they are actually raising or lowering the price, sorry, for some users, which is great news. And I think that's a really big story for them to shout about, and um, good news for people like myself who currently already subscribe to CBS All Access. Um, but beyond that, we actually had some confirmation about dates. Well, kind of. So I've talked on this show before about how I don't think 2021 is going to be nearly as devoid of Star Trek content as you might fear, uh, because th- people are better at doing this remote thing than they were a year ago. Plus, they're just, from a business perspective, it doesn't make any sense to plan for there being a gigantic gap where there's of the tentpole properties. If they knew that was coming, then it would have made a lot more sense to delay Discovery until after the new year, but they didn't do that. So it stands to reason that there is gonna be Star Trek content coming, and of course, they have, Julie McNamara and Alex Kurtzman confirmed that, at the very least, Prodigy, season 2 of Lower Decks, and season 4 of Discovery will premiere in 2021. Julie McNamara said that, the plan is to release a new track every quarter, which, by the way, March is the start of a new quarter. So, I mean, I don't know that it's gonna come out like, you know, March the 5th, Lower Decks season 2. I doubt that's gonna happen. But I actually wrote this down because I feel like we should start a pool. Um, my prediction. I hate making predictions, but I think we could see Prodigy in April. I think we could see July or August for Lower Decks season 2 and Disco in October. That would be mirroring what happened in 2020, and it gives you because I think Lower Decks and Prodigy are going to be further along than the others because they don't depend on people. They depend on people, obviously, not live people acting. Um, and Discovery season 4, they absolutely could get that filmed and out for later in the year. Conspicuously absent from anything that I could find, and if you have seen anything, please let me know. Drop me an email or something. I know that Strange New Worlds is in production. It's in production in Toronto. We know that Picard season 2 is in production here in Los Angeles. Those two don't seem on the cards for 2021. Um, I think that's probably okay because when you start to think about it like that, if you put so we finished the run of Discovery, and three new seasons of series is going to be at least 30 episodes of Star Trek, probably not starting before April. So that's April, May. How many months is that? 8 months. I'm trying to do math in my head. That's like almost an episode of Star Trek a week from now, not now, April through the end of the year. When are they gonna I think it's right for them to space that out. I think it's right for them to keep the cadence, not, concurrent. You're running out of time in a year, right? You do the math. So that's what we know. We know about, Prodigy, Lower Decks, and, Discovery season 4, and, probably the others are gonna be next year. And of course, a couple of you in the chat have mentioned Section 31. I wouldn't say that it's gone. I mean, obviously, I have no insider information. Um, you know, I think they're right. Somebody commented on this on YouTube, I think earlier today or yesterday. I can't remember. I've never been a huge fan of the Section 31 series. I mean, I love Michelle Yeoh. I would like throw myself in front of a train for her. I think she's amazing. But Section 31 to me has always been a bit antithetical to the whole Star Trek ethos. The fact that the idea that there's this sort of secret organization that's all shady and working behind the scenes. That's never really quite fit in with my ethos for Star Trek, and I know that it was a huge part of the plot in season 2 of Discovery. I would not be upset to see it not happen, 'cause however, I do love Michelle Yeoh, and if they could make that work, I think it would be a good thing, and I think a lot of people would enjoy watching it because I know that not everybody feels the same way about Section 31 that I do. Um, and also, if you read, there's a handful of articles. I know there's at least one in Variety. There's another one in the Hollywood Reporter that's talking directly to Alex Kurtzman and Julie McNamara in particular. They're constantly talking about what's happening to Trek after the current era. So it's not like this is what we get and that's it. They're already talking about what's the next phase. When this dies down, when this phases out or ages out, or if there's attrition of the series, what's the next thing that's coming down the line? So again, I don't have my sticker. No, Star Trek isn't canceled. Anyway, enough of that. I want to talk about very quickly Prodigy, which seems to have divided people a little bit. And I don't have much to say about that, except I'm just really, really glad that they are making Star Trek and that they are trying new things. I think it's the commercial success of the Star Trek franchise on television and on streaming services is good for all of us because when the total gross revenue of the Star Trek franchise is bigger, that means we get more merchandise. That means we get more conventions. That means we get more events. Means that, we, it's better for us on the whole. Not every show is going to be everybody's cup of tea, and in fact, that's a really, really good thing. For so long that you had one show and it was take it or leave it. Now the fact that you can have shows that you don't like that are Star Trek, that are still making Star Trek money, yay! So this is good. I personally love the artwork. I personally love the style as a parent of children. I think that it's got a tremendous amount of legs, and I think there's already great discussions happening about gender fluidity and the gender spectrum and discussions of, is Star Trek human centric. There's already some really interesting conversations among adult fans that are happening, and I think it can only be a good thing. That's all I have to say about Prodigy, because we've only seen one picture. But I would just, this week has been a very I said to my partner this morning, Star Trek fans are like riled up. If you go onto social media, it just, this week in particular, I don't know. I checked, Mercury is not in retrograde. People seem to be riled up and ready to fly off the handle at any moment. There's a lot of drama going on, a lot of high feelings, and I just wanted to remind everybody watching that you do not have to engage with drama when you see it. And the hyper dramatic fringes of the Star Trek fandom are very in the minority, and you're welcome to come and hang out in drama free Trek at any time. So that's all I have to say about that. Um, I wanted to kind of give you guys here in the chat a little bit of a sneak preview, which is very exciting for me. Chris already knows. So I actually missed the Viacom CBS call on Wednesday because I had something better to do. I had the opportunity to interview Walter Koenig about, his new book, which I've talked about on this show before, and it was a really great conversation, and literally before I joined you here this afternoon, I was, editing that, and hopefully I will get that out this weekend. So look out for that. Feel free to tell your friends. I hope you guys will watch, because, far from just a Star Trek actor, Walter Koenig is a really thoughtful and engaging writer, and what's in the book is really very good. So that'll come out hopefully in the next couple of days, and I hope you guys enjoy it because, well, it's pretty much why I'm doing it. So, All right. Wow, it's 1:26. Okay. Robert points out, I thought you can't talk to celebrities. Yeah, listen, I was sick for like 2 days before that happened, and I didn't tell anybody. Chris will tell you I was completely superstitious about the whole thing. I didn't tell anybody that that was happening because I was absolutely sick and I thought everything was going to go horribly wrong. In fact, Walter Koenig and I talk about something called the other shoe syndrome, which he talks about a lot in his book. When things are going well, you wait for the disaster to happen. And that's something that I suffer from really, really badly. Yeah, it's, um, sometimes an opportunity comes and you can't say no, which is kind of what happened. It doesn't mean that it feels comfortable leading up to it. After the fact, I felt great. He was really wonderful. Very funny and engaging. But yeah, it was hard work leading up to it. So yay. Um, Andrew, will the Walter Koenig interview be available on the normal podcast feed? I'm going to try and make it available. Probably what I'll do is because it was like 45 minutes long, I'm probably going to break it up a little bit so it doesn't just totally dominate the feed. But yeah, that'll probably be next week because I'm concentrating on the YouTube and getting that out on the web first. But yes, you'll be able to listen to it on the podcast feed. Okay, so it's now 1:27, and in a show ostensibly about talking about lower decks, I now have 3 minutes to do it. Right? It was a great show. I loved it. Bye-bye. um, uh, no, that's not. I'm not going to say that. Although I actually felt comfortable talking about the other news items for a while because, in my opinion, so this episode is called Cupid's Errant Arrow, and for those of you who don't remember what it is, it's basically they meet up with another ship. They're gonna they're gonna implode the moon, and we meet Boimler's girlfriend, played by the lovely Gillian Jacobs. But there's not an awful lot to this episode. Unlike the previous episodes where I've been able to find some kind of really deep meaning and commentary there, I didn't really find the same thing in this one. Although, having said that, I still think it's a really great episode. What I will say is that, I think it still reminded me of old school Star Trek where they would have like filler episodes or bottle episodes or the ones that Robert in the chat, lover, 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 lover. Stop saying lover. um, this is actually a really important episode for the series because you get a lot of really nice character moments. We're seeing the developing relationship between, well, I shouldn't say relationship, friendship. I mean, it is a relationship, but it's a friend-based relationship between Mariner and Boimler. You get to see some character development for Tendi and Rutherford as well. It's nice to see they're sort of competitive, and I love the fact that in this show everyone is super competent at their jobs. That's really great. I can't tell you how much I love Gillian Jacobs, and she's great in this role. She played Britta on Community, if you ever watched Community, and she does a really great job. So it was kind of a nice little Easter egg to have her in there. And speaking of Easter eggs, this is the episode that gave us the absolute best screenshot of the entire series. The one that's what the, thumbnail for this video is me doing the thing because it's, with Mariner with her big bags under her eyes and the cork board with all the red string up trying to unpick the mystery of, Barbara Brinson. Barb! It's wonderful, and it's a fun one to freeze frame if you can get a chance because it is just like they took all of the Easter eggs they couldn't fit into the whole rest of this series, and then they just put them on a wall and made strings. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So, props to them for that. Um, I do actually think there is some social commentary going on here as well, but I think it came across to me less like a lesson and more like a, kinda hammered you over the head with the social commentary, and that's this tension between, uh, privileged people and, people who are, trying to do good with a set of, legitimate moral values, and it was absolutely 100%, um a political commentary. It absolutely was. I can't even remember the name of the aliens, who lived on this moon and then all the other moons. But you've got the, Captain Freeman is trying to, they're all opposed to imploding the moon, even though it's gonna save literally an entire planet, because they're all super, super privileged, right? And they don't wanna do like, they would rather the entire planet dies than that their, like, property prices go down, right? I think it's a very heavy-handed commentary on the political landscape, um, but I think it's, like all good satire, it's very effective, especially at the end where he's like, "My entire" what does he say? My entire community or my entire something," and she's like, "How many people?" She's like, "Well, 2. We're really rich." And she's just like, "Implode the moon." I thought it was, watching her reach her end, was satisfying. Uh, Ultimately, it's more of a commentary than a lesson because at the end of the day, those people didn't learn their lesson. They got what they wanted. They kicked up a fuss about their pet project or whatever, and Starfleet absolutely gave them what they wanted in order to just be quiet, and, part of me is like, Starfleet should have just been like, "You guys can shut up because there are people down there who are gonna die, and I don't care about your property prices." Instead, in the spirit of negotiation, whatever it was, they installed something to do with the tides, and there's a couple of other things that they fixed, to try and use the diplomatic route. And in the end, she just had to put an end to it, right? So maybe there is a lesson there after all. But yeah, that was a relatively small part of the episode, so I don't really count it as like the huge big thing. Overall, it's another really solid, really enjoyable thing, and like I said, I I can't get enough of Gillian Jacobs, and I'm sorry, like, did they imply at the end that she was gonna be, like, in love with that, was it a not a beetle? I forget what they called it. Did they imply that? Because she's all like, "Yeah, it makes him irresistible to people," and then she's like, "I'm just gonna take this with me." They kind of implied that, they're pretty liberal in the future, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I have for today. So I'm gonna just quickly go through the chat and see if I've missed anybody's comments. Feel free to call me out on anything if you want. Robert says the nice thing in this episode is that it finally shows that the captain can be competent in something. I do think, I actually think she's competent most of the time. I don't think you rise to being a captain without having a level of competency. I think she suffers, like many humans do, from a lack of confidence, and she probably doesn't know how good she is at her job. But it was lovely to see her go from you know, trying to make everybody happy to just being like, "Nah." Uh, This is really good television. Um, Robert Kaiser. Oh, he been okay. This is sorry. You're making some good comments today, so gold star for you. He says, "I'm a bit sad for Erica and Bo." That's Erica Lippold and Bo Yeon Kim, who were writing the Section 31 show. He says, "I'm a bit sad for them that the show that they run isn't going to be released anytime soon, as I like those two as well as Michelle, but also a bit unsure about the premise of that show." Um, w to cross the streams a little bit here, it at the end of Walter's book, he talks, specifically about a script that he was trying to get developed and actually got as far as J.J. Abrams and J.J. Abrams's office, and, it just sort of meh. And he made a comment about, this is just a he included that as an indicator of how hard it is to get things made in Hollywood. Just because you have talented writers and a great cast and a good premise still doesn't mean that it's going to be the right thing that's going to make it to the screen. So yeah, I agree with you. I really want Erica Lippold and Boyan Kim to showrun a show. I want them to write a show because I feel that the writing that they do on Discovery is some of the most um, mature and compassion-driven story that I've seen. I can't always tell when they've written it, but I can tell the episodes where I'm like, that some women wrote that. And so I really want them to do it. And you know what? I honestly think that Alex Kurtzman does too. He's a smart man, and their talent will not go to waste, in my personal opinion. Um, so Christoph says makes a comment about sort of Paramount Plus. They need to establish themselves as a streaming service with a viewer before there are 47 global streaming services. Even Disney Plus started cheap, and they have Guardians and stuff. Um, yeah, I don't, and I can't speak to what the streaming the landscape looks like overseas. But I can tell you one of the things that I've noticed that they've been doing is positioning themselves really, really well for a European live television market. And um, the thing that sticks out to me is that they are absolutely doubling down on soccer content. So National Women's Soccer League and the UEFA Cup Champions League. Um, these are things that they have been running since last year, and they have re-upped those contracts, and I think that positions them super, super well as they go into the European market because football is so huge over there. Sorry, football, not like American football. And I think that's a smart move. My personal belief, which I don't have a lot of evidence for, my personal belief is that Viacom CBS are playing three-dimensional chess, and a lot of small people smaller than them are sort of still playing checkers. I do think that they're in terms of their strategy and their plans for expansion, they're up there with the big boys like Netflix and Disney Plus, etc. I don't know that they'll ever reach there because they're somewhat limited in their content, but they've also done, keep in mind, sorry, I'm going to rant again about Viacom CBS and their strategy. They they have done a deal. So, okay, so here's okay. I was gonna let you guys go, but I have one more thing that I forgot to mention. There was a little, and I couldn't figure out. Let me start over. They said something on Twitter that was about Star Trek, television, and movies. Now, I have Netflix, so I watch all my movies either on Blu-ray or there. But I know that there are only limited ones that you can get on CBS All Access right now, and the rest of them are scattered, right? But they said that, and then they didn't I couldn't find anywhere else they've addressed it specifically, but I know that they've done a deal with Epix, EPIX, for a lot of different content to be shown on Paramount Plus. So I'm waiting to see. We'll find out next week, but they completely implied that all of the films for Star Trek are gonna be available. Now, don't quote me on that, and if you do quote me, make sure that you put the caveat that they implied, because I haven't been able to see it explicitly spelled out anywhere. But between the CBS Paramount combination and also the deal that they did with Epix, fingers crossed that it's all there, because that would be such a really great thing. I'm racking my mind trying to figure out if we've ever had a service where we could watch all of the series, including the animated series, and all of the films from both the classic era and the TNG era and the Kelvin timeline all in one place, and I don't think we ever have had that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So that's a really interesting one. Plus, the deal with Epix is really great because it means that stuff that was promised exclusively to Epix after the theatrical run gets to be on Paramount Plus, and they've shortened that window to 35 days after theatrical run. They're going to put stuff on Paramount Plus, and this is what I was talking about with Top Gun Maverick, and how people were complaining that they weren't shipping it out to any of the other streamers because they wanted it to be in theaters. And it's like, okay, that's true. They do want it to be in theaters. However, they've worked out a deal so that 35 days after, I think it's 35 days after it goes into theaters, it'll be on Paramount Plus. So you got Mission Impossible, you got Top Gun is going to be on Paramount Plus. There's some other stuff that I can't remember, but those two in particular stood out to me. They're not going as aggressive as HBO Max, but I think industry-wide, HBO Max is like the thing that everybody's going, I cannot believe they did that. So one step away from that is pretty good. And yeah, I don't know. Okay. Sorry, I ranted about that. I spent a lot of time thinking about Viacom CBS and Paramount Plus. Robert Kaiser points out that they might not be able to run UEFA overseas because the league sells rights per country and have exclusive contracts with other providers in Europe already. That's a really good point that I hadn't considered. I'm ignoring you, Hosen Zarfungal. I haven't been on Pirate Bay. I think the last time I was on the Pirate Bay was like in 2003. I can't believe it's still around. Yes, and Robert also points out that some countries also require streaming services to have some amount of locally produced content. I believe Apple TV Plus is actually running into that problem right now because they have a global service, but their content isn't produced in the EU. So that's an interesting conundrum too. And yeah, Andrew, I think we've had services that have had all of the pre-Kelvin ones, or all the Kelvin ones, but not both altogether. Tim asks, what will Paramount Plus mean for UK Star Trek viewers who watch Discovery on Netflix? That's a ways off. They have not given any indication of when Paramount Plus is going to roll out into Europe outside of the Nordics right now. I believe the Nordics will get it next week, as well as Australia and then America. There's a timeline for one of them's later. I can't remember what it is. I haven't seen anything that talks about the rest of Europe yet. I'm sure that as soon as they have something in place, they will let us know. But it's a pretty big deal for them to be rolling out in Europe, but also I think you'll still have to wait a while before that becomes an issue, and I suspect they're going to be pulling back rights off of Netflix, although Viacom CBS very famously likes to license their content to third parties, and you can actually find, I want to say, yeah, so you can find Star Trek on Netflix in the United States as well, so it might still be there, I don't know. Okay, now I'm done. It ended up being, a pretty substantial show, and I appreciate you sitting in and listening to it all with me. Thank you very much. As per usual, I really appreciate you all being here. There's been some great chat going on, and yeah, thanks again. We'll be back on on Monday and look out for that Walter Koenig interview, hopefully in the next day or two. If you like what we're doing here, please check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/daily Star Trek news. Um, Anything that you can do to support the show helps us grow and expand and bring you more stuff. So thanks. That's all I got. We'll see you on Monday, if not at the weekend. Live long and prosper, everybody. Bye.